Welcome back to another episode of The Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Lauren Conlon, and today is a solo episode, our first episode back in a minute. I know we took a break, you guys. I've tried so hard since we started this podcast to either put out 1 or 2 podcasts a week with like the off missing week every once in a while. But generally speaking, we've been on, and there was just a lot that was going on. So kind of a quick recap. Been going through a lot of website changes, which are still ongoing, but that was taking a lot of my energy. Was going to Australia, just had a lot of travel on top of that travel, and then getting prepared in terms of talks for that trip. And then I'm actually starting a coaching mentorship that's starting this week. And there's just been a lot of things that have taken up my energy. And, sometimes we just have to take a step back from certain things. And the podcast was what I needed to take a step back from. But we are back. Today is a solo episode. It's going to be a quick one, a little quick episode, get back into things. And then I have some great ones that are already recorded and lined up. Me and Rick actually just recorded 2 really awesome podcasts. I know everybody loves the episodes that we do together. I have some great interviews coming up. So there's a lot of good things in the pipeline. Just need a little break. So today's podcast is actually going to be focused a little bit more on some kind of prompting questions, right? And you're like, wait, why did I listen to a podcast just to be asked questions? But sometimes I find that these shorter episodes are really, really valuable. And we're in this really interesting time frame. So I'm recording this on, let me make sure the date is correct, September 3rd. So Sunday, September 3rd. Tomorrow is Labor Day. And this is just generally the time where, it's designated that summer is over. We're going into fall, but we're not quite into the holidays yet, right? So summer is a time of a lot of food-centric, alcohol-centric events, and just more events in general, right? A lot of people are traveling. If you have kids are out of school. They have a lot of different things going on for their summer activities. So it's just like, there's just a lot happening in summer. And a lot of times we can let things kind of just slip, especially in terms of our quality behaviors. Maybe some of our more negative behaviors come out. And then there's, the period of time where it's going to be the holidays, right? So pretty much, at least in the States, October 31st, Halloween, all the way through the end of the year, through New Year's, is kind of this just like onslaught of, again, food-centric, alcohol-centric, socializing-centric events, right? Which obviously I'm all for. I love socializing. I love events. I love parties. I love getting together with people. But what can happen a lot of times during those periods is we get into, like I said, our more negative patterns. We stop doing the things that make us feel good. We fall into the things that make us feel not so great. So there's this time period now where we can really start to build some momentum before we get into the holiday period. And that's what I want to focus on for today's short mini episode, because I know how important it is to build momentum and to say, hey, let me not only just add some positive things, but how about I take away some of the more negative things that I've been maybe doing for the past month to 3 months, however long that, your summer activities technically have been going on. So the first question to really ask yourself is, what is something that you let slip over the summer, or really just the past few months, right? There's something that all of us have either not done or we started to engage in that was, either positive or negative, meaning we let something positive go away, or we started engaging in something that was more negative, right? What are either one or both of those things that you have found yourself in this position? And it's really one of those things that is easy to write off, right? We're like, no, I've been doing my stuff, right? Until you actually sit down and you give yourself the space to be like, ooh, actually, when I think about it, I haven't been doing this, or I've been really off my routine here. So that's the first question to ask yourself. What is something that you let slip? What is something that you can improve on right now, right? What are, like, literally this week, what is something that you can do immediately? Because oftentimes when we're talking about, hey, like laying the foundation, creating momentum, all these great things, they are going to take time. I'm not going to lie and sit here and say that, within 2 days of doing this, you're going to feel completely different, a total 180. There are certainly some behaviors that we can do that will make us feel better faster than others, right? But in general, a lot of these things are going to take time to build. So it can feel really, really far away, which is why oftentimes people just don't do those things because like, oh, they're so far. I can't even achieve that because like, here's where I am at right now. but you can absolutely say, okay, I'm going to do this week and I'm going to commit to it. And within 3 days, you'll probably feel better, not only from engaging in something that's more positive or taking away something that's more negative, but also just like honoring that commitment to yourself. And that's really where our self-confidence and our competence really starts to build. When we say, I'm going to do this, and then you actually do it, that develops such a stronger internal positive sense of confidence than really anything else could. And I know I've talked a few times now just in this podcast about taking away negative behaviors, but I think that there's such a emphasis on adding things in our life, right? We often forget about what are the things that we can detract or take away that will literally exponentially help us as well. And those often are much harder on our bodies and much harder on our mental health as well. The negative things that we need to take away. And so I know that it seems maybe it's just kind of counter to the current narrative, right? Where it's like, add this here, have an 87-step morning routine and make sure you do this. And I'm all about adding positive behaviors, of course, and interventions. But there are definitely things that are negative that you could take away pretty quickly that you would probably feel a lot better if you did that. So that's number 2. What is something you can improve on right now? Because it seems far away. This whole momentum building and habit building and all this kind of shift in our perception, that's going to take some time. But there are things that we can incorporate immediately that are specific to us and our situation that will really, really help. What did you struggle with last year? And I know you're probably thinking like, what are you talking about? Remember how I just prefaced this with, all right, we were finishing summer, or we just finished summer, and then leading into the holidays, right? Where were things kind of dicey for you last year? Because now, while you can't necessarily overlay last year's you to this year's you, because your situation is different, you are different, everything is different. But our past leaves clues, right? And if we've dealt with something previously, there's probably a higher chance that we're going to see that in some fashion again. It might look a little bit different, but when we really get down to it, like the underlying pattern is the same thing. Like literally, I just had such a big realization the other night in the float tank. And it was something that I really hadn't even gone in with the intention of that was what I was going to be focusing on. But in my sauna session, which I journal in my sauna sessions, and then going into the float, I had so many insights on literally a pattern that I have been exhibiting for the past 4 to 5 years. And it wasn't until I really gave myself that space to be like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I find myself in this same pattern. It looks different people, different outcomes, different behaviors on my end, feels a little bit different, but ultimately when I get down to the root of it, it's the same thing. So the reason I like sometimes to focus on that and to reflect on where were you struggling previously is because that's really going to give us a clue in terms of, okay, what's like the underlying, the big picture issues or a big picture issue, I guess in the sense, and what can I do now to overcome that? And that's how we can create strategies to overcome that. If you can't identify the problem, it doesn't matter to say, oh, here's the perfect solution, because no perfect solution exists if we don't know what we're working towards or what we're working away from. And then lastly, as you know, it is September, and I know that kind of the year always seems to speed up like so quickly as you know the months go on. But what is something, or what are a few things that you want to accomplish before the end of the year? Right? It's so easy to just be like, oh, well, year's almost over. Guess I'll wait till next year, right? And that's a little bit, dramatic. But especially as we get into the later months of the year, it's not really that far off. Like that happens a lot to people, especially as the holidays do pick up. So by having these goals in front of you to say, okay, what is one thing or what are a few things that I want to accomplish before the end of the year? You now have a trajectory of something very clear that you want to work towards. And then you can easily say yes or no to things that are going to stray you from that path. When we are not clear with what we're going after, we have really no reference point to know if something is going to be moving us in a positive or a negative direction towards that goal, right? Or away from that goal. And that's why having clarity on what you are trying to achieve is so important. And oftentimes people can look at this and be like, oh, well, that's just, you can get sucked into this like constant cycle of like more. It's never enough. and this like workaholic type mindset. But first of all, this doesn't even have to be about anything business or work related. It could be, right? There could be career things that you want to accomplish before the end of the year. But this could just be personal goals. This could be fitness goals, could be nutrition goals, could be body comp goals, could be training, could be spiritual related, like whatever it might be. And you might want to pick a few buckets, right? There's some people who like to be like, all right, for me to feel well-rounded, I want to fit within these pillars, right? Or I want to do these kinds of things within these pillars on a daily basis to feel good. Okay, what are some areas that I can work towards? And so it could just be one of those areas, or it could be multiple areas. But don't let the rest of the year just slip by because it's like, oh, the year's kind of closing in. We're almost to the holidays, we're almost to the end of the year. It's just a really easy mindset. Or it can just be like, oh my gosh, the last 8 months literally flew by. Holy shit, I haven't gotten nearly as much done as I thought I could have. And then that can be really overwhelming, and that can make us want to shut down as well. So what I would encourage you guys to do is to take this list of these 4 questions and really just sit down with yourself. And whenever I give prompting questions a lot to clients, especially when someone comes to me and they say, hey, here is an issue that I had this week. It could be like a singular issue, or it could just be a string of issues that we've been having that are pretty constant and similar over time. And I just say, hey, like, let's reflect on this, right? I want you to take 5 to 10 minutes to journal about this. And sometimes I'll just share like a general situation, like, okay, I want you to journal and reflect on this in general, see what comes up. Or it could be this specific instance happened, let's process it, right? But it's really, really powerful to do that, because when we don't create that time and that space, it's not just going to come to us, right? Any realizations or any insights that I've had are from deliberate exposure and deliberate time for me to have those insights, right? Like I have to create and carve out that time, and I have to be reflective. It doesn't just come to me, right? It might come to me a little bit easier when I'm in my mode of always doing those things, right? I'm not saying that every time, like I'm like, okay, gotta sit down, gotta have a perfect session. Like, no, it's not like that at all. But when you're in that groove and you're in that rhythm, those insights are able to come to you a lot easier, and you're just less emotionally reactive in general. So I know this was a little bit of a different podcast than we normally do. Let me know if you guys like this format with not only the shorter episodes, but they're a little bit more, pinpointed in terms of a specific topic, or, more prompting related. So let me know in the comments. If you're on YouTube, you can also send me an email at info@teamlocofit.com. And if you do like this style, because like I said, these types of prompts and processes have been so beneficial to me, not only as a coach, but as an individual. And it really just comes down to having clarity around a situation and knowing what you are working towards and what you are also moving away from. And just like it said, adding in positive behaviors is kind of all the rage, all the talk. Not enough people are talking about, what am I moving away from? What are the negative things I need to take away from my life and that are just detracting from what I'm trying to do? So I hope this episode was useful. If you guys liked it, please share the episode, subscribe, do all the things. Like I said, if you are on YouTube, drop a comment below. If you did like this format, if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me a message on Instagram, LAURIN. That's at Lauren Conlon. And if you have any other questions about coaching or programs or anything, and if you have any other questions for me or the team, or want to inquire about coaching, you can visit teamlocofit.com. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm glad to be back for the podcast, and we'll be on our normal schedule every Wednesday moving forward.